It's Tuesday, folks, and welcome to another episode of Hornets Daily, your one-stop shop for all things Charlotte Hornets. As always, we're presented by the good people over at FanArc, and I'm your host, Vance Ballard, but you already know you can call me VB. Want to thank everybody for joining us today, watching along with us. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, leave a like and a comment down in the comment section. We're over 300 subscribers right now. We're pushing to 400, 500, trying to continue to grow this Hornets Daily family here on the program. Again, it is a Tuesday show coming up. We've got a couple things on the docket. There is some buzz going around in the Queen City, but we are in the early stages of August. It's the dog days here. We're in the trenches of the summer, in between Summer League and the preseason, getting ready for training camp to commence. So some slow days do happen this time of year, but there is still some things going on. We've got some news. Let's jump right into the docket today. We're going to talk about Colin Ston. We know the move was made to acquire him this offseason, but is he going to be part of the long term? Should Colin Ston be with the Hornets going forward? Is this more than a one-year deal? We'll talk about that today. The Hornets have received some praise and some trash talk, I guess you could call it, about their offseason, but today we're getting back into the praise category. It's been described as a quiet crushing of the offseason by one expert. We'll talk a little bit about that on the program today. We know the Hornets have some roster moves left to be made, still some cuts that have to come. But we're going to talk today about three possible Hornets who may be on the way out, whose last year may be this year with the team. We'll discuss that on the program as well. And then we'll wrap things up with a goal that the Hornets have in mind. The only franchise to not play on Christmas Day. What's it going to take for the Hornets to get that illustrious honor to get to play on the NBA's biggest day, on the most popular day for basketball, that is Christmas Day? We'll discuss that today as well. You know, we don't do beating around the bush very well here on this program. Not something I like to do. We like to dive right into it. Let's go ahead and do just that today. Get this show started. Again, we're talking Colin Ston. Is Colin Ston a part of the long-term plan for the Hornets, or should he be a part of that long-term plan for Charlotte? We know it was kind of a surprising move when the Hornets went out and traded Jusuf Nurkic and was able to get back Colin Ston and a 2030 second-round pick in return, another asset, some draft capital in return for the trade. So it was a smart move by the Hornets. We know now that we've had some time to sit on it, and even when it first came out, we know the Hornets have probably, quote-unquote, won that trade. I know that's the way we like to look at trades nowadays, who won, who lost. So I think right now, anyway, the Hornets probably have the upper hand in that one. Now, Ston does come in on a one-year contract. He's due to make about $18.9 million this year. So not a crazy number. I know it's a lot of money, but not a crazy number compared to some other guys out there, especially when you think that Miles Bridges is making significantly more than that both this year and next year. A number like that doesn't make Ston too much of a pushback, too much of a turnoff, if you will, with that kind of contract for the Hornets so far going into this season. Now, all signs also point to Colin Ston being a starter coming into the 25-26 season, which could help bolster his argument for being here in the long term. It also seems like everything that's being said, everyone that's talking, his relationship with LaMelo Ball seems to be coming along nicely. It seems like Colin Ston has found a place I don't know if he originally wanted to be here when he found out he was coming to Charlotte, but it seems like he's settled in nicely, and he so far is enjoying his time here and does like being a part of the city, a part of the community, and does seem comfortable in Charlotte. So that probably would not be hard to get him to stick around if he does continue to like the city. Now, Ston is only 26 years old. I know he's been in the league for a while. He's a veteran in the NBA, but he is still a very young guy. I know that kind of contradicts what we were saying about Miles Bridges yesterday. Miles is 27, and we were talking about the Hornets getting younger and wanting to move down in age and not necessarily focus on guys who are already in their prime, but going into it instead. So Ston would kind of contradict that, but he is a little different circumstantially than Miles Bridges. Ston is much better at creating his own shot. He's a much better shot maker. He's much more efficient on the offensive end than someone like Miles Bridges. So keeping him around would be more conducive to the plan, conducive to building around the young core, as he's able to help that, as he's able to be a building block and not necessarily someone. He's able to be someone who the young guys can rely on to help them, and not necessarily like a Miles Bridges who would be relying on the young guys to help him in his type of offensive game. Again, the efficiency, the playmaking ability, the shoot, the getting your own shot, and the passing from Colin Sexton are what put him ahead of Miles Bridges in that category, and kind of make it less of a contradiction when I say keeping around the 26-year-old could possibly behoove the Hornets going forwards. Now, Sexton's coming off of 18.4 points per game last year, 4.2 assists per game, and 2.7 rebounds per game, all basically his career averages. I think he's averaging about 18.8 points per game total for his career, so just a slight uptick in that regard. But 18, 4, and right at 3 rebounds are basically his career numbers as well. So we're very familiar with what Colin Sexton brings to the table, what kind of style of play he has, and what numbers we're going to get from him, the consistency and the contributions that Colin Sexton can make. We know about that. Again, I've mentioned he's only making $18.9 million this year, so that means his contract going forward, the extension, the re-sign, whatever you want to call it, would probably be around the $20 million range, again saving money on a guy like Miles Bridges, whose contract is 25 this year and 22 next year before he becomes a restricted free agent and is going to require some restructuring. So again, it's advantageous for the Hornets in that regard, as we know that Sexton is getting a little bit older. He's not going to require a max contract, super max type deal. He's not going to go out looking for 21-year-old NBA superstar money. Sexton is also aware of what he is and what he brings to the table. So the more along the lines of the $20 million a year range would probably be enough to keep Colin Sexton. And I think with knowing that the Hornets have the money to do so, I think it could potentially kind of be I don't want to say a steal, but it would be a good move, in my opinion, to keep Colin Sexton around and use him to help build around this young core, use him as one of the building blocks around this young core. Now, the other option for Sexton is to trade him, to move on from him in the regular season sometime before the deadline, maybe incorporate him into a package deal to get a center, to go out and get a big man to help bolster that position as well. We know that is the struggle spot on this Hornets roster. That's the other option for a Colin Sexton. But if he comes in and starts like he's projected to do so, it does seem he's going to be the starter here on opening day. If he comes in and meshes well with the rest of his teammates, meshes well with the rest of the roster, even the guys coming off the bench, if he can help them and continue to make them better and improve there as well, then I see no reason to move on from Sexton. And I think I agree here that the Hornets should make him part of the long-term plan. Try to re-sign Colin Sexton if that's feasible next year, if that fits into the budget, and move forwards with the 26-year-old who, again, I know that sounds old compared to the rest of the roster, but 26 is a very young man. He still has a lot of NBA minutes left to give this team, and I think signing him would help Charlotte become a regular in the playoffs and help push them towards their goal in the long term of becoming a real contender here in the Eastern Conference. He's one of the offseason moves that I think it would be vital to continue to have on the roster going forwards to make a long-term part of this plan. And to sign Colin Sexton after this year, I think would be a smart thing for the Hornets to do. We'll have to wait and see what Peterson and company think, but it kind of seems right now like that is the way it's trending. Sexton going to be a starter on this roster, going to be a staple piece here in Charlotte. Hopefully that will continue going forwards in further past just this season as well. Now, speaking of some other offseason moves, we know the Hornets have gotten some love from their offseason. They've gotten some scoffs at what they've done this offseason. A lot of talk about their lack of additions at the center position. A lot of talk about the lack of depth at that position going into the offseason. But there are still some experts who think the Hornets did well and had themselves a productive offseason. Bleacher Report took it upon themselves over the weekend to list their top 5 teams they thought, quote, quietly crushed this year's offseason. and the Hornets happen to be the first team listed on the list. So it's nice to see, again, the Hornets, Charlotte, getting some recognition for the moves they made. Jeff Peterson getting some credit for the things he was able to do this offseason. The previously mentioned Colin Sexton deal, we know we just talked about that. That's the most highly praised. Bleacher Report even went on to call it, quote, a stroke of brilliance, being able to get Colin Sexton and a second-round pick in return for Jusuf Nurkic, who probably wasn't going to fit in this Hornets rotation anyway. Just didn't seem to be clicking with him. So moving on and getting a guy like Sexton, again, Bleacher Report called it a stroke of brilliance. Sexton gives the Hornets a ton of different options, not just this season, but next offseason as well. We just talked about re-signing him. If they move on from him at the trade deadline, or move him at the trade deadline, that's another option that I mentioned as well. It doesn't make sense to me to let him get all the way to the end of this season and not have anything, and he could potentially walk as a free agent and the Hornets get nothing in return for him. That part I don't think is going to happen. But Sexton does give the Hornets a lot of options. He provides a lot for what this team could do going forwards. But it's not just Colin Sexton. There's Pat Connaughton, Spencer Dinwiddie, the 4 rookies that have been drafted. This team really improved in a lot of areas, specifically fixing one of their biggest woes from last year, the shooting. The guys I just mentioned, Colin Sexton, Pat Connaughton, Spencer Dinwiddie, Liam McNeely, Con Knippel, Sion James, even Ryan Kalkbrenner, all of those guys bring a higher shooting percentage to this team than what they had last year. They expect to take a step forwards in both catching and shooting, creating their own shots, shooting from 3, shooting from inside the arc. It seems all of these moves were made to create better shooting for the Charlotte Hornets, something this team desperately needed. We know that Con and Liam McNeely were brought in for their shooting, as they are described as snipers from beyond the arc in multiple places. We've seen it on display. McNeely with the 2 games he played out in Las Vegas, and Con all the way through to the championship game. We saw his shooting just continue to get better as he felt more comfortable on the floor, and it will only do that, and it will only continue to do that as we get into the regular season. And these players, these rookies, these young guys get more comfortable in the NBA and on the floor. Now, these players, they do more than just shoot the ball. They're pretty good on defense. We know that Knippel has a few questions to answer. Kalkbrenner got to get a little bit quicker with the footwork so that he can be a staple piece on defense. But what these new additions and the rookies do more so than anything is they open the floor up. They improve the play for LaMelo Ball. They take a lot of the pressure off of the superstar for the Hornets, and for the first time in his career, he's really got multiple shooters that are going to be surrounding him at all times. We know he's had Brandon Miller to help him out a little bit, but this really makes it feel like LaMelo is not the only guy. He doesn't have to be Mr. Everything on the floor anymore, which should greatly improve a lot of his numbers. His points per game are going to stay where they are. We know that LaMelo is going to go out and get his, and that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing, as a matter of fact. But what the rest of these guys do should increase the efficiency for LaMelo, should cut down some of the turnovers, as these guys know how to get into position and get to a good spot to find themselves open. And when they do get a pass, these guys are able to make the shots coming off the pass. So his assist numbers are going to go up. His turnover numbers should go down. His efficiency should go up. This is the best spot for LaMelo to be in with the people surrounding him since he has been acquired by the Hornets. Bleacher Report also said that the spacing around LaMelo should be, quote, divine for the first time in his career, which with that type of description, you've got to be excited about that going forwards. Now, again, we know that the roster is not perfect. I've talked many times about the lack of depth at the center position. Everyone has talked about the lack of depth at the center position, the questions that are up in the air. Do the Hornets trust what they have in Kalkbrenner, Plumlee, and Musa right now? How much expectations go on to Musa going forward at the center position? So we know that the roster's not perfect by any means. Bleacher Report included that as well, going on to say, quote, no one should pretend to be in love with the Hornets' center rotation. But they did go on to say that all of the other moves, all of the other draft picks that they have made should be able to cover up or compensate for the lack of moves made at the center position. I'm not sure that's going to translate onto the floor necessarily, but just when looking at it big picture, we should be able to justify not going out and making crazy moves at the center position just because of how much better everywhere else on the floor got. Throughout the roster, there were additions made. The wing position got more depth. We know the abundance of guards that are now on this roster. We know the improvements that were made by adding Colin Sexton and guys like Con Knipple, Liam McNeely, things like that. We know this team is heading in the right direction and getting the praise this offseason. It's nice to see Jeff Peterson and the rest of the front office get the credit that they're deserved and get the description of quietly crushing the offseason before we continue to move forward and there are more moves and decisions to make. Some of those moves and decisions that still have to be made, we know there's some roster cuts that have to come. The Hornets still have to get that number down to 15. But Sports Illustrated thinks there are 3 guys who could potentially be either already on their last leg or playing their last season here in Charlotte. We're going to talk about 3 guys that Sports Illustrated thinks may be on the way out here in the Queen City. Now, we know before we start and get into the 3 that Sports Illustrated has listed, we know that the Hornets have embraced the get younger mentality, the don't bring in as many guys in their prime, don't rely on guys who are already in their prime, but make development a key piece going forwards and guys who are coming into their prime. We know LaMelo is only 23, Brandon Miller only 22, Con just 20, Liam McNeely 19 years old, Sion James and Kalkbrenner, they are 24, but they're rookies at the same time, so development is still there for them and getting better going forwards, getting younger, what this team is doing, hoping to move forward to the future. So that leaves some questions with several guys on the roster, to be honest. Who are those guys? Who's going to move on? Who's going to be a part of this franchise going forward? Who is still going to be utilized to help build around this young core of what seems to be turning into, instead of Miles Bridges, Brandon Miller, and LaMelo Ball, it seems to be more along the lines now of LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, and Con Knipple going to kind of be that core going forward. So Bleacher Report, again, they're the ones who put this out. They think that Miles Bridges, Josh Green, and Nick Smith Jr. could be the 3 that are in their final hours with the franchise. We've talked about a couple of those guys. We talked about Bridges yesterday. As a matter of fact, we spoke about the Hornets, whether or not they should consider trading Miles Bridges and what they may be able to get in return for somebody like that. So he is again listed as a potential moving piece for the Hornets. Now, could the Hornets wait until next offseason to make that move with Miles Bridges? I'm not sure if that's something that they have in the plans or not. If they decide that Bridges is someone they want to move on from, I think right now would probably be a better option. His value is still pretty high. He is still a 20-point per game guy. We know that his salary it's not the best. It's $25 million this year, $22 million next year, but that's not a crazy number for someone who can go out and get you 20 points per game. It's not a crazy number for a team that's right on the cusp of making the playoffs, right on the cusp of being competitive, just kind of need that one extra piece. So that doesn't take away from Bridges' value too much, and he could be a very important moving piece to get that center that I was talking about, to go out and make that move for a big man, or even just to use as future draft capital, the assets that you could get in return for a guy like Miles Bridges, who, again, is 27 and in the middle of his prime. The assets of future draft capital you could get back for a guy like that could potentially impact the future in a big way going forward. It is, again, starting to feel like Miles Bridges is the odd man out within the, quote, big 3. It's starting to seem like now that we're leaning a little more towards Con Knipple being that third guy, third member of the core, as opposed to Miles Bridges, who is, again, due right around $50 million over the next 2 years. Con Knipple drastically cheaper than that right now as a rookie as well. It could really help to get that number off of the books as the Hornets do look to move forwards and continue to add and get younger. They are going to have to make some sort of move for a center eventually, and getting the $50 million salary of Miles Bridges off the books could really go a long way for that. Now, Josh Green, could this be his last year in Charlotte for the Australian as well? I'm not sure he's going to make it the whole year. We've talked already several times about Josh Green being a piece, being a part of this team, being a part of one of the moving blocks for this team, being a part of one of the guys that they could get rid of to get the roster down to 15. We've talked about that. Now, Green underperformed last year in Charlotte. We know he was part of the starting rotation, but he just didn't live up to expectations. Wasn't quite the 3-and-D guy that the Hornets were hoping he would be, that we know the potential for him to be is in there. Just didn't really work out the way that the Hornets wanted it to with him being in the starting rotation. Now, you have to think about it. He, too, is also old compared to the rest of this roster. He is a veteran in the league going into... He's got some experience with two teams, having played with Dallas and the Hornets now, so he's not one of the, quote, younger guys that the Hornets are looking at on this roster. And he honestly doesn't really fit super well with the team. I know that if his defensive ability on the wing had panned out and had turned in to what the Hornets were expecting it to be, he may be a little bit better fit, as the Hornets could use some perimeter defense. But since he kind of slacked in that regard as well, there's no real fit for Josh Green on this Hornets team. But the 3-and-D potential gives him some trade value, and he's due just over $13 million over the next 2 years. That's not per year over the next 2 years. That's not a crazy number that'll turn people away from trading for the Australian for Josh Green as well. Now, Nick Smith Jr., he's the most, I don't want to say confusing, but he's the the most obvious one on this list who's not going to be in Charlotte after this year. We're probably all in agreement, if you've watched this show, that he's not going to be on the roster at the start of this year. We think that Nick Smith Jr., as well as probably Daquan Jeffries, will be two of the three that are left to get cut to move the roster down to the number 15. So Nick Smith Jr., I think he's the easiest one to put on this list. And there's just not room for him on the roster. The former first-round pick hasn't quite panned out the way Charlotte would hope he would anyway, so Nick Smith Jr. is probably on the move. It just doesn't feel like he's going to be there again at the beginning of this season. That's the only disagreement I have with any of this article that Sports Illustrated has put out, is that it's not going to take all season. I think Nick Smith Jr. has already had his last year with the Hornets organization. I don't think this year is going to be it. I think guys like him and maybe even Josh Green will be moved on from long before this year is over. Now, we talked a little bit about it in the beginning of the show. I teased it. What do the Hornets have to do to play on the illustrious Christmas Day? 29 franchises in the NBA have gotten to watch their team play on Christmas Day. Every other team in the league has gotten the honor to be part of what the NBA calls one of their biggest days, as they make it an exclusive event on Christmas Day. Again, an illustrious opportunity to get the chance to play on a holiday on the national stage, in more often than not a standalone time slot, something the Hornets desperately want to do. And Charles Lee and Jeff Peterson, I know it's not at the forefront, it's not the focal point there, but accomplishing all of their other goals of building this team towards building this team to be competitive in the conference, building this team to be competitive in the future, all of those other goals would be crucial in getting the Hornets on the Christmas Day schedule going forward. So they kind of go hand in hand. Obviously, it's not the main goal, not the one you're verbalizing, but achieving the other goals, continuing to improve, becoming a playoff team, getting better in the Eastern Conference would all go a long ways towards getting the Hornets on TV on Christmas Day, getting them on that schedule. Now, according to Sports Illustrated, again, there is a recipe for getting on the Christmas Day game, and that goes like this. Have an exciting young prospect. Have an NBA legend or a superstar player. Be competitive and be a big market team. Now, based on all that, you can kind of understand why the Hornets have not been selected in their franchise history to play on Christmas Day. the young prospect portion of it. Now, you may think, well, they have that, Vance, but guys like Con Knipple don't really fit into that exclusive category. It needs to even be a bigger name than that, much like why the Spurs and the Mavericks are playing on Christmas Day. This year, the Mavericks, more specifically, the Spurs are a pretty good team. They're probably going to be in the playoffs this year. But with a guy like Wembanyama and Cooper Flagg, the number 1 overall pick in this year's draft, those are the types of young, exciting young prospects, star names that everybody knows. Those that are already household names. While, yes, in Charlotte, Con definitely fits the household name description, he's not necessarily on that national level yet, so he wouldn't quite fit the bill for having an exciting young prospect. Step number 2, to have a star. That one, Charlotte checks that box pretty easily. We know that LaMelo is a very attractive player in this league. He is, I'm going to call him a superstar because I think that is the potential that he has. We've seen him play at that level as well. It might not be the most traditional superstar that you're thinking of, but LaMelo puts eyeballs on the screen when he's on it. He's fun to watch. He's must-see TV, and he definitely checks that box for being a reason to play on Christmas Day. Now, the one that has eluded the Hornets for the longest is step number 3, be competitive. The Hornets have struggled greatly in that regard, as we know. Not naive at all about that. That's where they have struggled the most. 8 of the 10 teams playing on Christmas this year were playoff teams from last year. Again, I mentioned the other 2 being the Spurs and the Mavericks, and they have Wemby and Cooper Flagg, so that's why they got selected as well. This will be the toughest hill for the Hornets to climb as they continue to try and get themselves into that category of competitive. They try to get out of the basement of the Eastern Conference and move at least this year into the play-in category, maybe making the playoffs as the 6 or 7 seed, and avoiding even the play-in game as well. So that's going to be the toughest hill for them to climb. That's going to be the one that is the longest shot as the Hornets continue to try step by step and become a competitive team. And then being a big market, Charlotte will be the market that it is. We know that. But wins could increase the market size. We know this fan base is hungry for a good basketball team. We know what basketball means to the state here in North Carolina. So, again, while the market size is not massive, the fan base is very loud and could potentially be enough to give the Hornets that push them over the edge and get on that Christmas Day schedule if the other 3 pieces of this recipe fall into place as well. Now, I think this is going to have to be done through the first 3 steps, obviously, and then overlooking the big market size. But I think that the Hornets are in the right direction. I think the front office is making the right moves, saying the right things, has the right goals. Again, not to only try and get the Hornets to play on Christmas Day, but when all of the other goals that the Hornets have, building for the future, developing young talent, building a strong young core, when all of those things fall into place, the market size will be overlooked, and that is what it's going to take for the Hornets to get onto the Christmas Day schedule. We're not going to have it it's not going to go forever. They're never going to play on Christmas Day. The time is going to come. We just have to wait and continue to see how it's going to happen, what steps are going to be taken for the Hornets to move into the spotlight, if you will, to play on Christmas Day. We will wait and see how that goes, and that's going to do it for today's show, folks. Thanks, as always, for watching along with us. If you haven't already, be sure to smash that subscribe button, leave a like and a comment. Tell me what you think. What do you guys think the Hornets have to do to play on Christmas Day? Will the Hornets ever get to play on Christmas Day, or are we always just going to be tucked back in the shadows down here in little old Charlotte? Again, thanks as always for watching. We'll catch you right back here tomorrow for a brand new episode of Hornets Daily. Have a good one.